Blog Talk Radio.
Greetings, beloved family, and thank you all once again for being here with us this evening on Occult Science Radio. I am Curtis, the Illuminated One Davis. Well, a lot of people know me as Curtis Davis, but I am a.k.a. the Illuminated One. And today we have with us for the first time a gentleman whose work that I recently came across. I heard his interview with another good friend of mine, Jan Irvin, on his show. And when I heard this information, I was blown away because it let me know that here's a gentleman who gets it. He's done an extensive amount of research, and being a New Yorker myself, he spent a considerable amount of time here in New York City before moving to Sao Paulo, Brazil. I'm so jealous of him. Brazil is a great place. You know, and I look forward to visiting there someday myself because I have many friends over there, and they said it is a tremendous place to be. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with whom I'm referring to my good friend Jose Barrera. And today we have another very, very powerful show planned. The topic for today is the magical foundations of society. So just the topic alone lets you know what we are in store for. So I'm going to start off by thanking our sponsor, TON, the Occult Network. That's www.theoccultnetwork.com. And on the Occult Network, you will find free content that is designed to unlock your consciousness, as well as on our premium channel, where you will find some of the most advanced esoteric information that you won't find anywhere else on the internet, and you're definitely not going to find it in mainstream media. You can also find the Occult Network on Facebook. Yes, the Occult Network has a Facebook page. We also have a YouTube page. You can find the Occult Network on YouTube. Thank you so much, everyone who's been supporting our YouTube page as well as our Facebook page. And you could also find the Occult Network on Twitter and LinkedIn as well. And if you want to keep up with what's going on Occult Science Radio too, you can also find me on Facebook, Curtis Illuminated One Davis. So come by, become a friend of mine on Facebook. I love meeting new family members. Join the Occult Network Facebook page. Join us on YouTube and Twitter and LinkedIn as well. And then you'll be totally in tune to what's going on with the Occult Network as well as Occult Science Radio. And also, when you go to the Occult Network website, don't forget to visit the events link, and there you will find information on the upcoming Free Your Mind Conference 2, coming up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on April 25th, 26th, and 27th, in which I am a featured speaker among a powerhouse lineup of other guest speakers. Please get your tickets because the tickets are going quickly. Once again, you can find that under the events link at the top of the occultnetwork.com. It is a very powerful conference coming up. You don't want to miss it. Now, having said all of that, it's time to welcome our good friend and newest family member. Get used to seeing him and hearing him because he's going to be on Occult Science Radio quite a bit. Our good friend, Jose Barrera. Welcome, Brother Jose. How are you?
Hi, Curtis. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you quite well, my friend.
Oh, well, first, let me thank you for having me, and thank you for a wonderful introduction. And it's a great pleasure to be in your show.
Excellent. Before we get into the good stuff, my friend, this is your first time being with us. And so just give us a brief background on yourself and what led you to your occult studies and what led you to do the groundbreaking work that you're doing today.
Okay. So I came to this by coincidence. It's pure chance that I end up here, or synchronicity, depending on how you like to look at the world, right? So for those who believe that there is no destiny, then this was pure chance, or this has been my path all my life, right? And I had to end up here. But one thing I know for sure is I didn't expect to end up where I am and doing what I'm doing. I'm a regular person. I studied systems engineering and computer science, and I have a scientific mind, and I've been very rational. I'm scientifically oriented, so I'm a very rational person. And what you mentioned, right? We're going to talk about magic today. And 15 years ago or 10 years ago, I would have never imagined that I would have been studying magic, because when you're a rational person, you take these topics and you look at them down, right? So you just mock them up, and when you're just hyper intellectual, that's all you do, right? So if you all you do is to be rational, then that's all you can do. So what happened, right, is that one topic that I've been always fascinated with is consciousness. And I think that's the biggest question in the world is what is consciousness, right? And why do we exist? And why are we aware that we exist? And to me, that's the biggest mystery of them all. So being rational, I ended up going to New York City, to your city, and I lived there for 18 years. And for the first 4 years that I was there, I was studying neuroscience because I thought that I could find consciousness by studying neuroscience. So, but what happens, right, is that when you open a brain and you try to look for consciousness and you start dissecting and you go down to the molecular level or the cell level, right, the neuronal level, and then the molecular level, what happens with consciousness is that it goes away, it disappears, right, and you end up with a pound of flesh, but consciousness disappears because through reductionism, you cannot find consciousness. It's something that we cannot quantify. So it's very, very difficult to it's a very tricky thing, right? Because it's like trying to look at the back of your head, basically. It's a blind spot that we have, but it's the only thing we know with certainty. Because if you think about this, right, for everybody here that has seen the Matrix, right, what's happening around us could be just a simulation, right, or it could be a real world, or it could be whatever. But that's a hypothesis at the end of the day. What the nature of our perceptions, right, where they come from, is we don't know. Is we can create many stories to try to find that out, but at the end of the day, it's only a hypothesis. The only thing we know with certainty is that we are aware of it. So it's very strange, because the only thing we know with certainty, that is self-awareness and existence, is the very same thing that is the biggest mystery that we have, because we cannot define it. So through that path, right, I got a little disenchanted with because I couldn't find consciousness, what it was, through the scientific method, right? So I decided to look at alternative ways and alternative explanations of what it is. And, well, that took me to strange corners of the universe, right, like magic and alchemy and the esoteric. And I still can't find it. And I think it's a big adventure, and I'm still looking for it, and let's see what happens, right? But I think that's the biggest mystery. So the other thing, right, is that I'm an engineer by trade, as I said, and then what happens is that you get hyper specialized in one thing, right? So I'm very good at developing software, right, and doing these things in one corner of the world, and I know everything about it, right? But then after the year 2000, right, the explanation that I had for the world broke up, and being a rational person, right, explanation of what I sense and what surrounds me, if it doesn't make sense anymore, then I have to look for new explanations of things. So I decided to broaden up my interests, right, and I start to study things further and further away from my core of my profession, right? And what I have found is that everything is interconnected, and everything is related to everything else. And the more you study things, the more you find that everything has a relationship with everything else. And so that's how I came up here in a short way.
Ah, I see. Wow, computer science. You know, I've always loved computers myself. So you said you basically, with regard to computer science, you more or less write software as opposed to being involved with the hardware, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. What I do is I create worlds on top of. What you're doing is you're creating spells, right? Because you're. The way I imagine software, right, and I love doing it, is you're creating crystals. So what you're doing is you're putting these components together, right, that do not exist outside, but when you start putting them together, what you create is these things that come alive in a way, right? So you're creating like crystals, and they're abstract crystals that only exist in your mind. And it's like, I don't know, you heard like mathematicians, they see beauty in math, right, and in relationships. It's pretty similar. Have you done that at any point or not?
Oh no, not really.
Mm-mm. So yeah, it's very interesting, but and when you're there, you're a creator in a corner of the world, but the problem is that is something where you can spend all your life, but the world is bigger than that and broader than that. So I decided to start exploring other corners of the world and see what I found, and I've been surprised with what I have found so far.
I see. Now, you did an excellent presentation, brother, on with Jan Irving, the magical foundations of society. And basically, from what I gathered, you were pointing out the history of our society and its occult Okay, it's occult underpinnings, if you will, and how these occult symbols are right in society's faces every day, and yet people don't see them. And we both know why. Because unfortunately we're living in a society where people have been dumbed down. Or they were taught that the occult, to study the metaphysics, the occult, the esoteric sciences, or the arcane sciences, however you wish to classify it, that this was something bad. This was something to get away from. And then when I see a movie like The Matrix was basically doing the same thing. Please tell us, and believe me, you have plenty of time, my friend, because that's why I brought you on the show, because I wanted to go into this more in depth. Please tell us about the magical foundations of society, how they influenced society in the past, how they are influencing society in the present, and how these occult organizations or occult practitioners plan to influence society in the future.
Okay, let's start. So, let's start by the conclusion. And I want to give you what I came to, and I think I can make a very good case about it, and it's that our society, we live in a society where we think that there is democracy, right? And we have civilized governments, and we have iPhones and technology, and we're these advanced scientific creatures, and that we have been on the moon, something that we didn't, but let's say we did, right? Like whatever. And basically, and we look backwards in time, and we feel superior to our predecessors, and we think that they were ignorant, right? And that they didn't know much, and that we're better than them. And that's what we get everywhere, right? Like when you go to a museum, let's say you go to a Natural History Museum in New York, and you look, and then they have these glasses where they have the lions and the elephants and so on, and then in others of these presentations, they have indigenous people from the past, right? So, and it's very condescending, because what we're doing is we're putting them there, right, and we study them from the outside because we're better, right, and we have dominated, and we look at them down. But when you start thinking about it and you think about it deeply, you realize that everything in our society is based on magic. Now, what happens is that magic is not what we usually think when we think about magic that it is. Magic is something that is very simple, it's very very obvious once you see it, but we've been fooled. And that's part of the magic, right? Like, and if you start with, so when we think about magic, right, in society, usually there are two ways to think about it. One is you think about the children's parties, right, where you have the guy dressed with a tuxedo and a hat, and he has his wand, and he pulls a bunny out of his hat. Or we think of Harry Potter, right, and all these supernatural entities and demons and conjurations of all these entities. So those are. I heard a beep there. Can you hear me still?
Oh no, go ahead. Yes, we can hear you fine.
Okay. So those are the two views that we have today. Usually, what we think about when we hear the word magic. But what I want to show is that magic is something different, and it's very simple. And magic is based on three things, and which are rituals, symbols, and then the secret ingredient in the sauce, which is faith or trust. So if you think about it, the magician in the party with the kids, right, when he pulls the rabbit out of the hat, we are mesmerized by the fact that a rabbit appears out of nowhere, but there is a trick, right? And because we don't know the trick, we think there is something that goes beyond nature when he gets the rabbit out, right? But it's an illusion. So we've been fooled because we believe in what we're looking at and what we see, and we don't realize that while he's moving his wand and we're paying attention to the wand, he's doing something else with his other hand. And that's usually what happens with this kind of this part of what we understand as magic, right? And in a way, I think it's true. Is in magic, what you're doing is, in a big way, you're suspending your inner. Basically, when you're in the presence of a magician, you're suspending your system of beliefs, right? And you're saying, okay, and he's doing something that you don't know how he's doing, and it looks mesmerizing. So what I'm going to show you is a different thing, or a different way to look at magic, right? The other way is Harry Potter, right? And everybody knows, like, okay, so you can fly around in broomsticks and send the lighting bolts from your fingers and things like that, right? So that's the other popular view that we have of this. So let's start by another thing that I want to mention before we start getting into the main topic. Is I want to explain to you a little bit how is that I look at things and how I study things. So one very important thing to me is words and language. And you're going to see that language is intimately related with magic. And did you talk with Jan about the trivium when he was in the show by any chance, or what?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You know, right. Quadrivium, we talked about it all.
Oh, okay. So your audience is a little familiar with this. So the idea is that what is interesting about words, right? And when you start doubting the history of the world and the knowledge that is presented to you, right? And when you cannot trust the knowledge that you get, then how can you know what you're studying, right? So you have to go to the basic things, and one of them, and one of the things that is very hard to manipulate and is very ancient, is language. So one thing that I find is very poetic and fascinating is the idea of comparing etymology with, let's say, paleontology. Because you see, words are these very ancient creatures that come from our ancestors, right? Generations and generations and generations ago. And in the words is encapsulated the history of the word and the context where this word has been, right? So it's like if you're a paleontologist and you go to the desert and you start unearthing bones of dinosaurs, right? These bones that you find tell you a story. So with etymology and with words is very similar. So if you get a book and you read history, right, a book of history, you know that history is being written by the winners. So it's distorted and biased. But the interesting thing about language is that language is very difficult to manipulate. And then when you study the roots of things in language, what you're looking at is at your past. So it's a very interesting way to look at things. So this is an approach that I have to things, and I find it that it is being very fruitful and very effective. So when I'm confronted with a new topic and something that I have no idea what it is, what I do is I stop my judgment because I don't know about it, so how can I judge it? And then I go straight to the language and I start asking what is what I'm studying, right? So if you go to magic and you go to a dictionary and you look at the definition of magic, right? It comes from magus, which at the end comes from of the magi. and we're gonna see who the Magi were, right? And here's the definition of what magic is. And let me read it to you. It says, any supposed supernatural art, especially the pretended art of controlling the actions of spiritual or superhuman beings. So, two things here. One is you can see a bias in the definition, right? So you see any suppose, so they're putting already suppose, so they're already telling you can read the belief system of the person that wrote this dictionary, because he's telling you suppose, right? So you can see that there is already an editorial, and you cannot trust the very definition of what you're reading, but it gives you information, right? So what it's telling you, right, is someone that can control supernatural beings, or control the actions of supernatural beings or superhuman beings, right? And then the other interesting thing is it comes from the Magi, and if you go and see what the definition of the Magi is, so Magi is simply it was the name given to a caste of priests in Persia. So the Magi, right, and if you go back in Persia, right, like thousands of years ago, and you think about it, they were the priests, and the priests were the people who basically run society, and one of the names they had was the Magi. And if you think about it, thousands of years ago, being a legislator and being a magician and being a priest, right? All these things were part of the job description, right? Of this caste of people who control society. And here is, let me read the definition, is one of the members of the learned and priestly caste in ancient Persia who had official charge of the sacred rites, practiced interpretation of dreams, professed supernatural arts, and were distinguished by peculiarities of dress and insignia. And the second part that I want to make you notice here is the other one that we have, right? Is the Magi, where the three wise men who visited Christ, supposedly, right, when he was born. So you remember the wise men, right, the Magi who visited him. Now, the interesting thing about the word is that it comes from magnus, is the root, the etymological root of this, the Latin magnus, which means great. So remember, it's a caste, and then it's a term that denotes greatness. Okay?
Okay.
So now let's start to get into this. So look at this. This is very interesting. If you look at the word magister or magistrate as well, these two words come from the same root, magnus. So you see, when you start reading the definitions, right, you have master, magistrate, major, mister, magistrate. All these magister, all of them come from the same root. So one of them that is interesting, right, is in magister, it says it's a title of the Middle Ages given to a person in authority or to one having a license from a university to teach philosophy and the liberal arts, coming back to the 7 liberal arts. And if you think about it, then wise men and philosophy comes from philosophia, philos and sophia, right, which literally means the love of wisdom. So the Magi was a name given to the philosophers in the past. And then you start to link things, right? So what philosophers do? Philosophers, at the end of the day, right, the maximum at the Oracle of Delphi was know thyself. So what the Magi do, right, is at the end of the day, is this caste of people who are learned, and what they do when they're studying the occult sciences, right, is getting knowledge of themselves. And at the bottom of all this, right, the occult sciences are knowledge of how we work, of what the mind is and the rules of the mind and how it works. So this has two implications, right? One is, if you know your mind and you learn how to control your own mind, then what you can do is you can get enlightenment, right? You learn how to better yourself. And then this is what you have in all the white magic groups is exactly that, right? So you think about the philosophers, the great masters of the planet, right? Jesus Christ, Buddha, anyone that you think that is wise, what they know is they have knowledge about themselves. But this has a dark side as well, and that is, if you know how the mind works, but your neighbor doesn't know how it works, then what you can do is you can control his mind, and then you can manipulate him and make him do things to favor you on his detriment. So that's the other side of this. Are we good so far?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Please continue.
Okay. So if you start to go back in time and you start to look at magic and where it comes from, right? And we see that this was the caste of priests in antiquity in Persia. Then this idea of this priesthood had a high point in Egypt. And in Egypt, what you had was this group of people who were the priests, but they were also the scribes in society. And in Egypt in particular, writing was something that was considered magical and supernatural for good reasons, because they thought, and with many reasons, and you'll see why, that with language and when you write things down, you can achieve immortality. And in a way, if you think about it, it's true, because we know about the Egyptians today because they wrote down who they were. So literally, this ancient Egyptian society is gone, right? Their culture is gone, but they're still with us, and we're talking about them now because they transcended death. So in a very literal way and an interesting way, what they were thinking, that when you put things down, when you project your thoughts out and you materialize them into stone or into writing, then you transcend death. Now, the other thing that these priests did, right, so it was not only writing, and writing was a magical act, remember, but then magic was another part of what they did. So they did the spells, and if you went to the temple, right, and you went to the house of life, and you saw the priest there, and you said, oh, I have this problem, or I have this illness, or this problem with my wife, or whatever it is that you went to talk to the priest, right, he would take a scroll with a spell written down, and he would write the name of the person on the spell, right, and then by the authority of the priest, then it would say, I wish that by the power of thought you get better, or whatever it is that it said, right? Then that at the point that he spell out the name of the person, then that was charged with energy by the authority of the priest, and then it became something valuable and something that could heal the person, right? So here is what is interesting about this, and is that something that is very fascinating to me about these ancient societies is that we have compartmentalized everything, as we spoke before, and as well, I'm hyper specialized in developing software and doing this, right, and someone else is hyper specialized in a little corner of let's say physics or whatever it is that people do. But we don't have a holistic view of the world. We don't have a theory, right? We cannot explain with physics why we fall in love, right, or things like that. Now, one thing that is very interesting about the ancient people is that they had a holistic view of the world for good, regardless if it was good or wrong, right? Their view of the world, it was very harmonious because the laws that they apply to the exterior world were the same that the laws that they apply to themselves and to the interior world, right? So as above, so below.
Mm-hmm.
So they had this idea, right, that what we have inside is the same as what we have outside, and by studying the outside, then we can study our inside, or the other way around, right? And that's so true, because at the end of the day, inside and outside is only an illusion, right? It doesn't exist. If you think about it, imagine that what you're looking at right now in front of you, right? Imagine what is the process that is happening with you in order to see what's going in front of you. So what is happening is that sunlight, or the light from a light bulb, is hitting the object that you're looking at, and that light is hitting your retina, and then your retina, the cells in your eye, what they're doing is they're converting that into an electric pulse, and that electric pulse, right, is creating a signal that goes into a neuronal network and reverberates, and somehow what you end up with is the image of the outside. But you never saw what is outside of you. All you have is this reverberation inside you. So when you look outside, and you have this illusion that you're looking depth, for example, the illusion of depth outside of you, right? We know that if you close an eye, right, then 3D disappears and it becomes flat. It's something created by your head, right? So the outside world that you look at deeply, if you think about it, what you're doing is you're looking at your interior. You're looking at yourself.
Yes.
When you look outside, is all you can ever do is look at yourself. Because you see, the only thing that exists at the end of the day is you. We're only one thing. We're all of us. Everything is interconnected, and we're all of us are this consciousness looking at this theater that we have in front of you from different perspectives. But all of us are only one same thing, right? And think about it. We come from the same place. We are the earth, right? We are the stars. We are one, all of us. And we have this illusion of separation, that there is an outside and an inside. And I think learned people in the past had this very clear. And they created fantastic theories, and they were very wise, and they knew very well about this. And if you think about it, if you don't have a television, right, and all you can do at night and you have electric light, and then the sun comes down at, say, 6:30 or 7, right, and then you're in pitch darkness, what do? Well, you gather together with your friends around the fire, and what you do is you tell stories, and you share with them. And what are you doing when you're telling stories, right? You're doing many things, but some of them that are very interesting is you're creating hallucinations in the heads of others. Because think about this, if for a moment, please, everybody that is listening at this, if you close your eyes, all of you, and are you ready? And I say giraffe, you see what happened? Or if I say, I don't know, dinosaur, I made a hallucination in your head. And now if I say pink dinosaur, you see what's happening? Language is this beautiful hallucinogenic that we have. We have the ability, we're magical creatures, and we have the ability to cause on others hallucinations. And that's these constructs that we create in language that we share with each other becomes our collective reality. And culture is basically a set of these shared concepts between you and I, right, and the collective on the members of the culture. But it's a deeply magical thing. If you think about it, what we're doing is we're hallucinating. We're having this collective hallucination, and that's language, and it's beautiful. And then you think about it, the God of magic was Mercury, right? Which his Greek name was Hermes. Mercury is the Roman, the Latin name for Hermes. And then magic, which is one of the Hermetical arts, comes from Hermes, right? Hermetical comes from Hermes, which means, one of the things that it means is sealed, right? Occult, concealed.
Yes.
And is Hermetical arts. But one of the other attributes of Hermes is that he was the god of language as well. And he was the messenger of the gods, because he was into communications. But here is where you start to look at things, and when you start to study things like the Greek gods, then you start seeing other interesting things. Like, he was also the god of two things: shepherds and thieves. So what is the relationship between shepherds and thieves, right? Why was he the god of shepherds? What is what the shepherds do, right? They control the sheep, right? Mm-hmm. So they move around the cattle. And the son of Hermes was Pan. And Pan was the god of the cattle as well, of the shepherds. And the word panic comes from Pan, the son of Hermes. And then the other thing, if you think about it, if we have the capacity to create things by naming them, which is what we do with language, and if you remember John 1, right, in the Gospel of John, it starts at the beginning, it was a word, and the word was God, and the word was God, and God was with the word, right? That's the way it starts. So we have the power to create things by naming them. Now, the problem that we have, right, and we can help it, because that's what we are. What defines us is that what makes us human is the ability to create symbols and share them, because it's a collective activity, right? Creating symbols without someone to share them makes no sense. You create them in order to share them. Now, the problem that we have is that because we live in this collective reality of symbols and concepts that we create, then we can create symbols and concepts that have no correspondence in reality. They only exist in the imagination. So, another thing that you can do, at the moment that we have the capacity to create language, the capacity to create lies exists within. So, because it's systemical, it's part of language. So, the ability to be fooled by these constructs in the mind is a part of language, and it comes with it. So that's why Hermes is the god of the thieves as well, because he can deceive people, because he's the god of imagination. So imagination is what helps us to dream and create new worlds, right? And all these awesome system of communication that we're using right now, and I'm using to talk to all of you, and we're using to communicate. This is the product of our imagination. But the other thing that it has is that it has the power to deceive, because you can create constructs that are outside of language. So far, so good?
So far, great.
Excellent. So let's take a look a little bit about the activities of these priests and of these magi. So let's start with one that is interesting, and is the creation of talismans. So let me go here to the definition of a talisman, right, and what it is. So at the end of the day, the definition of a talisman, it comes from the word telos, which is completion and or tax. So right at the definition of the word, you see a talisman is a way of payment. And that's interesting, because that's not usually what we think about when we think a talisman. Curtis, what is the first thing that you think when I say talisman?
I usually think in terms of some type of amulet or sigil, if you will.
Yeah. So we think about charms, right? Like, and these kind of things.
Oh, yes.
Now, what is the mechanism that gives power to a talisman? So the way it works, right, is that there is a ritual involved, and a priest or a person with authority or that can charge the talisman can do this, and then they do a ritual, and then they consecrate, let's say, the talisman, and then it gets charged with whatever is the protection that you want to get, right? So you go to the shaman or the witch or the wizard, and then they do this ritual, and then they give you this charm. And you see this is very used, right? Like this kind of charms in Catholic church, and people have all these relics and little cards of the saints, and it's around the world, right? So that's the first idea of talismans, right? Now, so what you're doing is you're charging with energy an object through a ritual or a consecration. Now, this is very interesting because what you're doing is you are taking an object or a symbol and you are attaching to it all this set of emotions around. So you are creating around the talisman all these, the power of the talisman, right, resides on the faith of the people that they have on the object that they are venerating, right? So the way it works, right, and let me put it in a different way. A classic example of what a talisman is, and this is going to be counterintuitive, but I'm going to explain you why it's a talisman, is a flag. So if you think about a flag, right, what you're doing is you're taking an object, in this case it's a piece of rag, right, a rag, and with symbols, colors or animals or stars or stripes, whatever it is that you want, and through ritual, what you're doing is you're attaching emotions to this object. So what you're doing is you're projecting your inner energy into this object. And as time goes by, and remember what we were talking about, magic, is that we create this concept or these constructs in our heads, and we confuse them with what is outside. So in a way, when you see the flag, and this is related to sigils, what the sigil does is it evokes all the other things that are attached to the sigil. So when you look at the flag, then all these emotions that you have from since you were a kid start showing up to you, right, and come to you, to your subconscious or your consciousness. And that's the power of a talisman. Now, the perfect example of a talisman, and this is the one that is the one that the talisman per excellence, and that was the original talisman, is money.
Yes.
And you'll see how it comes, right? Like the word money comes from the word moneta, as in monetary. And moneta was a name of the goddess Juno. She was called Juno Moneta. And in her temple, they used to have a mint where they used to mint these little coins that were given to people in exchange for sacrifices. And these coins were called the monetas because of the name of the goddess, and they were produced in the temple. Now, what is fascinating is that what gives power, and think about money, right? Like think about factually what is money. Today, if you think about it, it's just a piece of paper with some wiggles on top of it, right? And one catch, right? Because I can come here and I can draw a bill, but I can go to a store and people are not going to accept it, right? They're not going to accept it. The other thing that is missing is the authority. And that's the secret sauce, as we talk about, right? Is you need to have authority, and that's what gives the power to the talisman. So money has value because we believe it has value, because we believe in the authority that tells us that these things have value. And that's the only reason why it has value. And all of us walk around every day with these talismans, and we charge them with energy all the time. Because you see, what we do is we change our time and labor for these pieces of paper. So what we're doing is we're putting all our energy is getting stored figuratively, right? Because it's just a fiction, right? Energy, when you use it and it disappears, right? So symbolically, it's getting stored on this object that we're giving to someone else. And so what we're doing is we have this medium of exchange of energy, which is talismanic by nature. And if you think about the way money is created today, it's fascinating because it's a pure act of magic. Because what you have is basically an authority that goes and creates money and says, and here it is. And what they did is they created value out of nothing. They created something out of nothing. Well, they created value in quotes. They created something out of nothing. But if you think about it, in reality, they did not. But as long as people believe that they did, then they did. And that's the bottom line of magic, is that as long as people believe, because that's the main component of magic, then what you end up doing is you modify your behavior based on the belief. So what's going on, right, is you're taking something that you're creating in the ether, in the minds of people, and by that belief, what the spell is that people modify their behavior, and then what you have is a manifestation in reality of the spell. But the manifestation in reality of that spell is the modification of the behavior of people. And it's an act of thought. And that's fascinating because it's real. Is it etheric, right? Is something that is in another dimension, right? It's supernatural, but you see what it is. It's fate, and it's the manipulation through rituals of the beliefs of people, and that's what magic is at the end. You see. So that's one of the things that I come to see, and as soon as you start to look at around you and you start to look at the symbols that we have in our society, and you understand this, and you look at the world like this, things make a lot of sense because you start to understand things that you were not able to understand before. The other beautiful example, right, is and think about this one, is pure magical thinking, is the enactment of laws. Think about when our dear president shows up and creates an edict, right? Like, by the powers given to me, I declare that from now on, there is no poverty, or whatever is the conjuration that they're doing, right? But think about it. This magical thinking is there is one person that believes that he's God, and he has the power of the God, and just by saying something, then it happens. Now, the curious thing is that it does in some cases because people believe on this person, right? Is the belief in authority that confers the power to magic, because what you're doing is you're conferring your energy and your time and your attention and your power to somebody else by doing this. And that's the whole thing, right? And that's why, if you think about what they do, right, is they create all these rituals that are very elaborate, and we will talk a little bit about rituals in a moment, in order to give a sense of credibility to what they're doing. So here is the other one, and it's very interesting, and is the creation of supernatural entities, right? The conjuration of supernatural entities, which is another aspect of magic. Now, again, I want to talk a little bit about one word that we have, and we never question it, and it's supernatural. So, Curtis, what is the first thing that you think when I say supernatural?
When I think of supernatural, I think of something that is beyond the ordinary. That is something that's beyond mere human belief, beyond the belief of the human mind. Because, unfortunately, we live in a society where, as I said earlier, many people are dumbed down. So when they come across someone who is enlightened or illuminated, the things that they do would seem supernatural and or extraordinary to those on a lower level of consciousness. So when I hear the word supernatural, I think of illumination, enlightenment, something beyond the ordinary.
Yeah. The problem is that I asked the question to the wrong person because you're illuminated, right? You're the illuminated one. But it's fair to say, right, that what people think, the popular conception of what is something supernatural, right? Then they start to think about poltergeists.
Yes.
And they start to think about demons or levitations or yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, like UFOs, the paranormal, things along those lines.
Right, Harry Potter, right, and all the monsters and all these things. Now, notice something. In my presentation, I will not say that that's not possible because I have no idea. I've never seen someone levitating, and I haven't seen these supernatural things. They may be, but I don't know. And they may as well be. And I'm not. But what I'm saying is something. I'm not precluding that idea, but I think there is something simpler when it comes to supernatural, and I agree with you. Let me read you the definition of supernatural. Let me get it here. And again, it's very simple, right? It comes from the Latin super natura, which is super is above, and natura is nature. And look at the definition of it. It's very simple. Is being beyond or exceeding the powers of nature, not occurring through the operation of merely physical laws, but by an agency above or separate from this. So it's very simple. Is something supernatural is something that happens, but is not ruled by the laws of nature. That's it. Very simple. Now, think about this. So, the typical idea about how wizards are doing conjurations of supernatural entities, right, and are invoking or evoking demons, is that they create sigils, right, and they have all these rituals, and then they create the conjures. And through this, what they do is they evoke or they bring into existence, into 3D reality, an entity from a different dimension, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now let's see how that works, which is fascinating. So let's look at something interesting, that is the word incorporation, which comes from the Latin incorporatio, and it means is the act of placing in a body or giving material form, incarnation, or embodiment. Right? So it's basically an incorporation is giving a body to something that didn't have it before. Right? So is exactly what we're talking about. But think about this. Think about what happens with corporations. What is what you do with a corporation? So what you do is you go to your local you go to your local authority, right? And they create basically a document that declares that this entity has been created. Now, remember what we were talking about, politicians and magical acts. Again, this is what you're doing, right? You're bringing into existence something out of nothing. And again, that's a completely magical act. And think about what a corporation is. A corporation is something that, by definition, is out of our three dimensions. So you cannot point to a corporation. It doesn't exist in 3D. Corporations exist in our heads. And think about the definition of supernatural, which was very interesting, is something that is ruled by laws that are different from the laws of nature. So which other laws do we have? The laws of men. So when the legislators, right, enact a law or pass a law, what they're doing is a magical ritual. And in the particular case of corporations, they're bringing into existence a supernatural entity. And it exists. And it manifests in reality through the modification of our acts. Because we believe in the existence of the corporation, and hence we act accordingly to this belief. So the embodiment in 3D, in reality, of the supernatural entity is through our actions, based on our belief. And to me that's fascinating, because all of a sudden, this let me see things through a different way. It's a very different and interesting way of looking at things, and things start to make a lot of sense when you think in this way about these entities. And then look at the priests. What remember what the Magi were? They were the caste of priests who ruled Persia, right? Now look around you. What is the name that we have for that caste today? We have changed it, right? And now we have these politicians or lawyers, or but they're the same. It's the name of a caste who, what they do is they write spells down, right? They scrolls, and they look very important and and they sign them, and then they bring into existence things that didn't exist.
That's right.
And that's the foundation of our society. And the biggest of these supernatural entities, if you think about it, is the nation state. Look at, I don't know, the foundation of the United States, how it happened, right? You get this bunch of people who believe that they're special for some reason, and probably they believe that they're special because the others around them made them special, or believe that they're special, and they come together and they say, from now on, we are going to create this entity that is called the United States of America. And we're going to say that we have these limits here, and they create these imaginary lines around the floor, and they have constituted out of nothing a new entity that didn't exist before. And then think about the sigils, and you can see a lot of internet videos about corporate logos. But think about what they are, right? And the idea of the sigils.
Yeah, well, Jose, we're starting to get some static on your end, so we're going to take a quick pause here to work that out and see what's going on, because, we're starting to get a little static. So we're going to work on that right now, and we will be right back, family. Stay tuned.
Free your mind, too.
Hello?
A conference on consciousness, mind control, and the occult. April 25th through 27th in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. World-renowned whistleblowers gather together to shed light on our world's problems and bring forward empowering solutions. 3 days, 24 speakers, your mind set free. Free your mind too. April 25th through 27th in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. For speaker and ticket information, visit freeyourmindconference.com.
We are going to continue. We apologize for the technical difficulties, family. We have them worked out, and we are back with our great friend, Jose Barrera. And you were talking about the magical foundations of society. So go ahead, my friend.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so we're starting to talk about sigils. So think about what a sigil is, right? So a sigil is a symbol that has the power to evoke an entity. That's it, right? So you see John Dee used to create these very elaborate sigils, and you can see how they are created, for example, in chaos magic, right? Where what you do is you create a symbol, and then this symbol has the power to evoke something subconsciously or consciously. So that's the idea that we have, right? And then when you think about sigils, we think about talismans and all these things. Now, we were talking about corporate logos. So think about what a corporate logo is. And I'm a coffee junkie, so I like the Starbucks one, right? So
yes.
So, but think about what happens, right? Every time, and even the word, right? The word Starbucks is a sigil.
Yes.
Because what you have is that. Think about what happens with that word. Every time I think about Starbucks, guess what happens to me? I start salivating.
Yes.
Or every time I see a symbol on the street of Starbucks, then in a strange way, what it's telling me is that I should be drinking coffee. So it's fascinating because what you have is you have these symbols that have the power to change your glands, basically, right? You start salivating with this, or your thoughts. They make you think about this, and the way this works, and we'll see a little bit, is through repetition, and we'll see how it works. But so think about what we were saying. So a sigil is a symbol that has the power to evoke a supernatural entity. Well, look at the corporate logos or the company names. That's exactly what they do. Because every time you see the McDonald's sign, then you think about the burgers, or you see the peace symbol, then it evokes you all these emotions, right? So is we're talking about again the same thing. Is you are creating a talisman that evokes a supernatural entity. And think about this: every time you walk down the street on Broadway, right? You walk down Broadway on your town. What you see around? Is a bombardment. It's a psychical attack. What they're doing is you're getting a bombardment of these sigils trying to grab your attention and make you behave, right?
Oh yes.
Evoking your emotions. They're making you, pushing you to act. So to me, you don't have to be complicated, right? And you have to think about demons and all these supernatural, in quotes, entities, because reality is simpler than it looks, right? Or that we think it is, and that makes a lot of sense, right? Because the truth is obvious and is very simple. And I think that's the things what we were saying at the beginning of the show, is that things are hidden in front of you in plain sight.
Oh yeah.
But because of fear and because of all these preconceptions that we have, right? And because of the Disney Channel and because of the movie industry and because of all the propaganda that we get on our magic box, we have a distorted view of the world, because what we have is a spell on us. We're in this deep trance where we live inside spells casted by very powerful wizards around us, and the best of these spells that they cast on us is that we don't even are aware of them.
That is
and part of this is what you were saying, is the occult, right? Is that they're hidden from us, because you see, as soon as you realize that the hat of the magician has a hole, the spell collapses. Boom, right? Because now the guy fooled me. And I think magic is used on itself to protect itself. And let me explain that. So what they do is that they take all these ideas, right? Very simple. Think about it. It's very simple. Is manipulation of emotions, right? And at the end, the secret is who are you? Who you are, who you really are. And the study and the knowledge of who you are, which is magic and which is esoterica, right? Is all these the hermetical arts. That's what they are. Is the true philosophy. And what they do with this is that they create this cocoon of images and fear around them, which prevents us from studying them because of fear or guilt, right? So we don't go and study them because, let's not mess with start studying magic, because then tonight something's going to show up in my room, right? Like but that's the idea, right? People don't study the occult because people think because of fear.
Exactly.
Or they ridicule it. That's your possibility. They disregard it because no, this is something that is stupid and it's for kids.
That's true.
And you see, as far as we have this and we don't know it, then people can play with us and they can use us because they control us through a spell that we're not even aware of. So, in a sense, right, that's the core of what I have come to see around me.
I see. Now, when we talk about the occult, and I could tell by the information you've shared with us this evening, Jose, that you've done an extensive amount of research. Now, for someone who's listening to this broadcast and they heard your information, and they've heard my information, and they become intrigued, and especially with regard to mind control. What would you suggest how someone could basically begin a study of the occult and begin to break the chains, if you will, of our societal mind control?
Okay. You see, the thing is that my journey took me to these conclusions that I'm presenting now, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm giving you basically a punchline of a lot of time of thinking about reality on my own. So you already have the punchline of what I've been thinking, right? And I don't think this is the ultimate. I bet the onion has many, many layers, and you can keep peeling it. But in alchemy, there is something very, very interesting. That is one of the things that they say in alchemy is burn your books, which is interesting, right? And it's something I would never do. I'm not an alchemist yet. I have thousands of them, and I love them. But it's so true. Once you get an insight, right, and you know how things work, you have to trust yourself. And that's one of the biggest problems that we have, and one of the biggest indoctrinations that we have in our society, is that when you go to school, what they always teach you, right, is that knowledge is outside of yourself.
That's right.
Always. There is always a figure of authority which is telling you what is right and what is wrong. But you cannot come up to the truth on your own. You always have to rely on this authority figure. So what I would probably suggest is don't believe in anything, right? Like and every time I believe in something, and it's a pleasure now, and at the beginning it's very scary when you have a set of beliefs that you grew up with, and you start to question them, and it's very hard, right? And you are very lonely for a long time before you find people that start to share your ideas, and it causes a lot of emotion. And when you when you question the beliefs of people don't think about what's happening, but they act emotionally about things. So you can never have a deep conversation, or it's very hard to have a deep conversation with someone because it turns into an emotional rant. And
oh yes,
it's always, and especially when you question things that really matter, and there usually are the foundational of beliefs of people. So people, and I think it's part of the same thing, because we don't know ourselves, right? And we're always looking outside of us. We don't know our emotions, and then we don't know how to tame them. And that's another interesting thing, right? In all these alchemical traditions, and all, part of that is taming the dragon, right? Is controlling your emotions, is know thyself. But you see, you can read about what other people have found, but the only way you can know yourself is by looking at yourself.
That's right.
So I think the path to initiation, right, and the true path is not an external path. It's personal, and is something that is, everybody has their own path. Now, I think all these schools, right, what they give you is techniques that others have used, and they have proven to be effective. But at the end of the day, it's something very personal, I think. So yeah, you can read. Well, the internet is the best place in the world to study this, right? Or there are thousands of books on alchemy and hermeticism and all these things. Now, which of them are true and which of them are false? That's another story, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And that's the problem with when you start studying esoterica, is that you have many charlatans.
That's true.
And I think it's part of the deal, right? Because part of discrediting this is creating bullshit, if I can say that on your show.
Oh, absolutely. feel free, my friend.
Right? So, and it's very interesting. I see, again, I've never seen a UFO, and it may as well be something real, but if you think about it, every time you have something that is true, right, and you have someone that is questioning the right things, then all of a sudden you get someone else with a wacko idea that discredits everything that everybody else is saying. You see what I mean?
Oh yes.
So that happens a lot, and I think it's part of the game. Is that so? At the end of the day, and what I told you before, I'm still very rational, but I have learned something through time, and it's that I cannot only trust reason all the time. I have to trust my heart at the end of the day. And what I found, something that is a hint that you're close to the truth, or you found something that is truth, is that it's simple. Is that it's self-evident. And once you see it, it's like, of course, how didn't I... the most genial ideas in the world, if you think of, are the ones that are so obvious, but you were not able to see before.
That's right.
Those are the best ones, because those are the ones that you say, of course, that's it. So when you have to go and you have to learn the legal system and 1,000 laws, and you have to study for 100 years in order to see something, and you have to do all these weird things, and you perhaps one day are gonna... I think the truth and the world is simple. Now, the problem is more than learning. I think it's about forgetting than learning. So we have all these habits of looking at the world in one way, and we forgot on how to look at the world without preconceptions, and that's very hard, right?
Oh yeah.
So more than learning is forgetting bad habits, right? And forgetting the biases that we already have through years of indoctrination or repetition of habits and things that we have, and then we end up judging things before we know them, and that's a deep act of ignorance. And that's why what I was prefacing to you before, right? Today, 10 years ago, I would say yes, there are no ghosts, and yes, there are no UFOs and all these things, right? I would say that. Today, I leave a door open to them, to that possibility, because you know what? I don't know. And I think that's a healthy position to have. Now, that doesn't mean that I believe in everything that I see around me, right? So I have a method, and that's what thinking is for, right? Is in order to discern between things, right? And that's what the Tribune is for. But at the end of the day, I think it's a matter of your heart. And one thing I learned through time is that many things that I thought that were true in the past, I realized that they were not. And I was convinced that they were. So my big question now is, okay, what are the things today that I behold that are truth, that tomorrow I'm going to say, you know what, I was wrong. But I think that's part of the process, right? And I think part of accepting that you're wrong is an important thing, right? It's one of the biggest and the most important things of learning is seeing that you have a deficiency in your knowledge.
Exactly.
So, yeah, what I would recommend to people is trust in yourself. Like, we have the truth in us because we're it. You see, we're able to function in the world. Our bodies are these beautiful, miraculous things that know how to breathe, and they know how to palpitate, and they know how to operate, right? And they do all these things for us or with us, and they're incredibly wise. So I think trust yourself. It's self-confidence. The truth is inside you and inside me, and we are it.
I see. Now, basically, I find that what's been going on within the past several years, Jose, especially with regard to the arcane sciences, the word Illuminati, has become the catchword, if you will, and people have been made to believe that with regard to the Illuminati, these are people, that powerful 1% that controls the entire planet. Now, depending on what side of the fence you're on, the Illuminati or the illuminated ones, they could be the bad guys, if you will, the ones who are running the world and causing all the wars and famines and what have you. And then on the other side, the Illuminati can be looked at as those who are enlightened and who are true occultists. What are your thoughts and views on the Illuminati?
Yeah, I think when you have occult knowledge and you learn to control emotions, you can control the emotions of others, or you can control your own. So this knowledge, what it gives you is power. But I think the way you use your power transcends the knowledge, and it's up to your heart. So the other thing that I came to realize, right, is that all my life I look for knowledge, but I have come to learn that a big component of this is your heart. So you see all these problems that we have in the world, I don't think we can solve them with knowledge alone. Because, yeah, you can be very powerful and have all these amazing ways to control emotions or whatever, right? Like, look at the first thing we did with nuclear energy. So imagine this: is we learn how to split the atom. Imagine the achievement for humanity that is, coming to know so deeply the nature of molecules and the nature of atoms and elemental particles, that we learn how to decompose them. And the first thing we do with them is blow 200,000 people. Think about that today we have these amazing machines where we can talk to anyone around the world at the speed of light, and we can communicate instantly with anyone around the world, and yet still we have a rate of 50% of divorces.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fascinating. Like, I'm here looking through a window, right, in a building in Sao Paulo, and at the horizon you can see a favela, which is basically a slum on a hill, right? And they don't have running water at the top of the mountain, right there. And I'm at the same height here on a building, and I have running water. So obviously the lack of running water on that side of town is not a technological problem, because we know how to bring running clear water to top of mountains. So it's a problem of the heart. And I think this is something that we neglect, right? So I don't know, you have the truth movement, and you have the, I don't know, the 99%, and I don't know, all these movements, right? And they're always talking about knowledge and how do we do this, but nobody talks about the heart and compassion for others. And absent that, then you learn how to split the atom, and what you do is you blow other human beings with it. So we have a disease in our society, right? Like we have people, and I think about it, when you have people who want to control others, right? And when this becomes something that is pathological to the extreme, right? And you end up with a dictator, right? Or a president or a general, or you end up with someone who wants to tell, like you end up with Michael Bloomberg wanting to tell everybody what size of sodas they want to drink, right? One question that I always ask is, what would drive you to want to control so much the lives of others? What took you there, right? That you feel so superior or so insecure that you have to do it. And to me, the driving force behind that is fear.
Oh, yes.
So when something happens to you, right, and you have a bad life or a bad youth, and you had bad things that happen to you, and I don't know, people rape you or beat you or yell at you, and you have a bad life, and you grow up under those conditions. When you grow up, you don't want that to happen again. And the way you think that you can do that is by controlling. So you see, the trick of this and magic is the driving force behind this, right? There are two things. One is faith and trust, right? And the second one is fear. And black magic is based on that, right? It's the manipulation of fear to modulate the behavior of other people. But at the end of the day, the most fearful of them all are the people who want to control everybody else. So when I see these people, right, and then one of the problems that I see is that people go and say, oh no, then the problem is police, right? Police, and you can see this a lot, right, in the libertarians and all this truth movement, and is, oh no, police are all awful, right? And yes, they're control freaks, and they want to impose things, and they threat you with force and violence. But the first thing that I do now is think about what happened to them, so they became like that, and they want to live their lives like that. And I bet my life on it that if I had their life and their past, I would be doing the same today.
That's true.
So I think the first thing that we have to see, right, is that we become our past. We are like when you look at the bark on a tree, and the bark of the tree tells you the history of the tree. The way we behave and the way we look at the world and the way we are is like the bark. We are the history of our experiences and our past. And that's reflected in the way we behave. And we behave to others and with others. So I think that the way to solve this problem that we have in the world, if it's solvable at all, and I think it is, but it's a lot of work and we're not going to see it, is by looking at others not as enemy figures and as police, and because they have because that's part of the spell, right? Like, just because someone is dressed in a funny way, right, then we treat them differently as if they were dressed as you, or so is look at people as humans, as what they are, right, for what they really are, because that's what they are. The rest are appearances. And then we attach all our emotions and all the spells that we have on, I don't know, Germans are evil, or Jews are evil, or Muslims are evil, or whoever is evil, because we're attaching our emotions, we're projecting our feelings, and we're creating a spell outside. We're evoking that spell that we have. We're projecting that on the people around us, right? So I think what we have to do is take that down and look at people with our heart, not with our eyes.
I agree. And that very, very beautifully put. I totally agree. Wow, time really got away from us, Brother Jose. But that's fine, because this is just the first of your many appearances to come on Occult Science Radio, brother. Consider Occult Science Radio home. As we wind down, brother, please let everybody know how they could tell them about your wonderful, wonderful website and any other information that you may wish to share with the family in closing, brother.
Oh, thank you so much, and it feels like home, and this has been very candid, and I had a great experience here, and I feel honored to be here, and I had a great time with you, man, and thank you so much. My website is JoseMariaBarrera.com. So it's JoseMariaBarrera.com. Or easier, just look for Jose Barrera, like in the Terminator, and magic, the 3 words. Jose Barrera Terminator, sorry, magic. And then you'll find me. I'm not been terminated yet.
Brother, it was great. I mean, I learned so much, from the information that you shared today. And I'm quite sure the listeners out there have as well. I'm already planning your next visit. So start jotting down what you are going to talk about on your next visit, because I'm going to be contacting you within a matter of days to set that up. But it was a pleasure, brother, and hope to work with you sometime in the very near future, because you have some information that people really need to hear, and I really would like to be a part of that.
Thank you so much, man. The pleasure was all mine.
Thank you so much, my friend. Be well, and I will be contacting you shortly.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. Peace.
Bye.
And we also want to thank you as well, beloved family, for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here with us on Occult Science Radio. Don't forget to visit theoccultnetwork.com. And as I said earlier, there you will find in the events link information on the upcoming Free Your Mind Conference 2. That's going to be held in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, April 25th, 26th, and 27th. I'm going to be just one of a roster of some of the most powerful speakers that you will ever see at one conference. Get your tickets early, because tickets are going rapidly. And also feel free to become a Ton Premium member at theoccultnetwork.com. I'm so touched by the people who have been supporting the website and supporting the radio show. It is you all out there, family, that keep us going. Because when the feedback that we get from the radio shows we do and from the content that we provide on theoccultnetwork.com, the feedback that we get, it's really touching, and it lets me know that we're doing something right here. We're touching the lives of people, and the information that we provide is really making the lives of those who come in contact with us better. So we're very touched by that. So thank you very much, my beloved family. Thank you for listening in. If you love the show, press the like button. Feel free to leave comments and let us know how we're doing so we can keep doing it better. All right? And with that, as I always say in closing, my beloved family, peace, love, and power. And please, please walk with strength. I love you all. Peace.
Higher consciousness. Let's go higher in our consciousness. Let's go higher, higher consciousness. Let's go higher in our consciousness. Let's go higher. The time's come for me to change the way I think, to change the way I feel, for me to go beyond what everybody thinks, what everybody says is real. Today I take a step into a time and space of peace and possibility, and here I'm gonna stay until I find my place, my true divinity. Higher consciousness. Let's go higher, higher in our consciousness. Let's go higher, higher consciousness. Let's go higher, come on, in our consciousness. Let's go higher. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with just one step and one idea. I'm moving on, not knowing what is coming next. I'm getting close, I'm getting near to a part of me that touches everything, uniting all reality. I'm the middle between what earth and heaven brings. I am the I am the we. Yeah. Higher consciousness. Let's go higher, higher in our consciousness. Ooh, yeah. Let's go higher, higher consciousness. I'm on my way. Let's go higher. I'm going in our consciousness. Yeah. Let's go higher. I'm gonna touch the sky with my mind, holding tight. Clouds passing by. I'm gonna touch the stars. It's not very far. There is no limit to how high I can fly. Let's go higher in our consciousness. Come on, let's go higher. You can go if you want to. Let's go higher. Let's go
Free Your Mind 2, a conference on consciousness, mind control, and the occult. April 25th through 27th in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. World-renowned whistleblowers gather together to shed light on our world's problems and bring forward empowering solutions. 3 days, 24 speakers, your mind set free. Free Your Mind 2, April 25th through 27th in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. For speaker and ticket information, visit freeyourmindconference.com.